Welcome to Mumbrella House. I'm Tim Burrows. With me today is a social media legend, Guy Kawasaki.
Hello.
Welcome along.
Hello.
Now, Guy, as we'll chat, I'll very much establish his credentials. But
Thank you.
one of the most followed people in the planet on social media. So we're very excited to have Guy with us. Also, I'll mention that joining us from the newsroom is my colleague Steve Jones. We'll be keeping track of social media. So if you would like to use the hashtag on Twitter, ask Guy, then Steve will keep an eye on your questions. You're welcome to throw in anything you want on social media, any advice you want, any thoughts, want to argue about its value, whatever, then do use that hashtag, or feel free to throw in questions via the comment thread at the bottom of this page where you might be looking at things right now. So Guy, let's get back into it, and let's establish some kind of credentials, because I think for most of the conversation we're going to be talking about social media with the assumption it's an important thing. So let's start there. What actually gives it its power and its importance?
Well, what gives social media its power today is that it is the holy grail of marketing. It is fast, it's free, and it's ubiquitous. And I can't think of anything else. I mean, television is slow, it's expensive, and it's not everywhere. Print is slow, less expensive than TV, but also not everywhere. A website, it's not so fast.
Steady on the website.
It's not so fast. It's kind of free, and it's kind of ubiquitous. But I think that social media, you have the ability, well, vis-a-vis a website. With a website, you have to sort of pull people to you, right? You have to pray that people come and watch you. But with social media, you can push. And I think, foreign as this concept may sound, pushing is good. I mean, you control your own fate. You can push. That is a good thing. So as I look across the gamut of all ways of reaching people, social media, I mean, this is a golden age of marketing.
Well, that's a great opening, and
can't get much better than this.
We'll dive into the social media question properly in a few moments. I think what we'll do is we'll go straight to the newsroom, and Steve, let's take a question from you, Steve, if we can, please.
Yeah, Guy, I know you've done a lot of work with Air New Zealand. In your experience, which companies have shown a real sort of aptitude to use social media in a particularly savvy way?
Sure. Well, obviously, I think Air New Zealand does it well. They have very good presence. They put up very good videos. For example, they just painted an airplane black. They had a YouTube video about how they painted that airplane. Virgin, all of Virgin properties, but in particular, I'm familiar with Virgin America. Cadbury,
What is it they do well?
Cadbury makes great chocolate, but in addition, they have some of the most beautiful photography of chocolate. And these are the kind of things that I like to use, what I call the NPR model, which might not be so easy to understand here in Australia.
As in National Public Radio.
As in National Public Radio. So in America, we have National Public Radio. I assume you have the same thing here.
We have the ABC.
Okay. And in America, I listen to NPR every day because it has such great content. So great that NPR, unlike any other institution in America, can run a telethon. And a telethon is kind of a pain in the ass experience because they're asking you to get on the phone and donate money, right? So can you imagine a TV station, a network? Can you imagine Fox coming on and saying, okay, we're interrupting this coverage now. We want you to call Fox, 1-800-FOX, and donate $10 a month so you get this free crank radio, right? It's inconceivable. So NPR provides such great content that they earn the right to promote this telethon. And I think that's a very good model for social media, that it's about earning the right to promote. It's not a God-given right. And you should do this about 1 out of 20 times. 5% of your content should be self-referential promotion. So, for example, if I were Air New Zealand and I wanted to earn the right to promote Air New Zealand, I would talk about, well, this is a picture of Mount Coronet today skiing, or this is the world's greatest video of All Blacks during their haka, or I would show this is Queenstown water taxi. I would show this is the best place to get burgers in Queenstown. This is the best place in Auckland to go ziplining. You know, so it's not about Air New Zealand, promoting Air New Zealand, pimping Air New Zealand. It's about why you should come to New Zealand.
But then 1 in 20.
1 in 20, smack them right between the eyes and say, you know, we have this special today. If you want to fly from SFO to AUC, this is it. But I think that they earn the right. The mindset you have to put yourself into is not that someone's not going to follow Air New Zealand to learn about Air New Zealand. They want to follow Air New Zealand to learn about the destinations they serve. And so if you constantly put great content about, you know, the 10 best places to eat in New Zealand, the 10 mountains to ski in New Zealand, all these kinds of things, so that every once in a while, boom, you hit them with a promotion. I think that's the model that brands should use.
Let's talk about your social media numbers.
Scary
I'm going to
thought,
try and
yeah.
get them right.
Yeah.
Twitter, more than 1 million followers.
Yeah.
Google Plus, well over 6 million followers.
Yep.
LinkedIn, as a LinkedIn influencer, we'll talk about the difference between influencers and connections in a moment, more than 800,000.
Yes.
Facebook, 250,000. What is it, other than time, that has helped you build up those followers?
Two things. One is my orientation, and I try to embody the NPR model that I'm constantly providing curated stories that I believe people would not have found or would have found with a great deal more trouble or much later. So there's that aspect. I'm trying to be a curator. You know, basically the world is divided into creation and curation, and it's very hard to create content on a regular, well, you would understand that, right? So it's very hard to constantly create great content, but curation is not so hard. So it's a matter of finding great stuff that other people would not have found. And another secret weapon that I have that explains much of my success in social media is I happen to have found, or actually you could make the argument she found me, a woman named Peg Fitzpatrick, who is just the best social media person I've ever found, and she has upped my game. She forced me to go onto LinkedIn and participate in the influencer program. I never thought of LinkedIn as a social media platform until she told me how great it was. So she has forced me to up my game, and I would put her up against entire agencies. So sometimes it's just luck that you find someone like that. So it's the curation, it's Peg Fitzpatrick, and the third factor is I really work hard at it. I don't consider it something that I do when everything else is done. So my core existence is social media. Every minute of the day I'm trying to earn the right to promote something, you know, later on. Right now I'm the chief evangelist of a company called Canva, and we're an online graphics tool company. And so I'm
so you
constantly
just earned the right to promote that.
That's right. I just gave you all this content, so now I'm going to hit you between the eyes. So I'm trying to create a followership who appreciates what I do, and then every once in a while I'm going to tell them about Canva. That's the bargain I've struck.
And we will talk about Canva.
You better.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a long way. It's a long way to come otherwise, isn't it? Now, what I'm interested in
from the Opera House?
well,
wasn't that bad?
Yes. No, it was more the trip across the water in the first place.
Not the last kilometer.
Absolutely, it's always the last kilometer, isn't it? On the social media side of things, I'm interested when you talk about the curation, because there's a lot of yada yada that gets to the curation.
Yeah. How do you curate?
Yeah, how do you curate? You know, where do you go looking?
So it starts off at some level of a strategy of, so I'm Air New Zealand. Besides talking about Air New Zealand, what would my followers want to see? You know, it doesn't take a rocket science to figure out that, right? So if I were running social media for a restaurant, you know, besides telling people about our great food, what would a foodie want to see? So if I were running social media for a restaurant, I would talk about, well, this is how coffee is decaffeinated, or this is how the world's greatest tequila is made, or this is how you can ensure that when you boil an egg, the shell comes off easily, or this is a video we found where if you put the cloves of garlic into a bowl, cover the bowl, and shake it for 30 seconds, you'll have perfectly, I don't know what the little, yeah, peeled, yeah. You'll have perfectly peeled garlic in 30 seconds, okay? So these kinds of things are not about the restaurant.
But they're relevant.
But they're very interesting to people who are into food. You know, how is coffee decaffeinated? You know, what is with this special coffee that, you know, meerkats eat and poop out, and, you know, now it's $600 a pound? Like, what's with that coffee?
And for you, when you're trying to find something relevant for your followers, I mean, you're clearly not just sitting on Reddit.
No. Quite the contrary. So if you really want to get down and dirty into what I do, I am the co-founder of a website called Alltop, ALLTOP, and that stands for All the Topics. So Alltop is a series of pages organized by topic where we import the RSS feed of the leading blogs and websites for that topic. And so if you are a restaurant owner, you would go to food.alltop. If you own an airline or a hotel, you would go to travel.alltop. And if you are a social media consultant or an agency, you would go to socialmedia.alltop, where you would see a constant flow of great stories. So I use Alltop to find stories that I believe my followers would be interested in. And it is the most efficient way. You know, there are things like Flipboard and Feedly, but the center of their design is to provide a beautiful magazine-like experience with a beautiful picture, okay? Alltop is the opposite of that. Alltop is, we want you to see as many headlines as possible so you can quickly view 200, 300, 400 stories. And so I use that every day to find stuff. And then Peg Fitzpatrick is also finding stuff. So we have two people really looking for stuff all the time. I cannot emphasize that it is not easy. And we're just willing to pay the price. I mean, that's how you get 8 million followers, unless you're Britney Spears or you're Kim Kardashian or you're, you know, David Beckham or, you know, somebody like that. Okay, but if you're just a person, you just have to work your ass off.
Well, fairly soon I'll take another question from Steve, who's running social media. So the hashtag is Ask Guy. So if you do want to ask that via Twitter or on the news story itself, if you want to come in via our comment thread, then you're very welcome. That's assuming you're watching this live, of course. But before we get to that, let's actually drill it down, because we talk about social media as one thing.
Yes.
We've touched on like LinkedIn, we've touched on Twitter. Let's actually separate out some of the kind of traits of these different types of social media. Twitter, for instance. What makes an ideal thing to share on Twitter?
So one day, I decided I would be very clever. And Philip Kotler, you know, the father of marketing, has this concept of the 5 Ps, you know, price, promotion, place. I don't even know what the other Ps are.
Price,
promotion, place. Something else.
I'm going to think about it while you're talking.
What piece of crap marketers are we? We don't even know the 5 Ps of Kotler.
This is a terrible debacle.
So anyway, get on Wikipedia, Zach. Let's find that out.
Steve, can you please Google the 5 Ps of marketing for us, and we'll cross to you in a minute.
Promotion. There's one more though.
I feel
so anyway. So I decided one day that I would outdo Philip Kotler, right? So I said, all right. So I'm going to find a P for every social media platform. So Pinterest is clearly pictures, right? That's all there is to that. I would say that Twitter is for perceptions. The line at Starbucks is long.
Yep.
It's sunny in New South Wales. You know, whatever. It's perceptions. There was just an earthquake in, you know, Guatemala. So that's about perceptions. For LinkedIn, well, let's not get to LinkedIn first. Let's go to Facebook. So Facebook is really about sort of the people that you went to high school with, and you went to college with, you slept with, you know, whatever, right? So it's people.
And how about for brands?
For brands? For Facebook?
Yes.
Facebook is paid promotion. That's the piece. Because it ain't organic anymore. God knows, right? So Google Plus, I believe, is for passions. So this is the big dichotomy, right? So people are thinking, well, Google Plus is a failure. It doesn't have, you know, nearly as many people as Facebook. But I would say that Facebook is for people you already know.
Yes.
And Google Plus is for finding people you don't already know who share your passion. So a good example for me is the people on Facebook that I had, they were people that I knew, relatives, friends, college classmates, colleagues, whatever they were. But they don't necessarily share a passion for two things that I love, which is hockey and photography. Okay, so when I want to share my passions as opposed to existing people, it's Google Plus, where there's Trey Ratcliffe, and this is I didn't know who Trey was. He didn't know who I was, but he is a fantastic photographer from Queenstown, right? So he wouldn't have been in my Facebook page because I didn't go to high school with him. I didn't go to college. I don't know who the hell he was.
Now, I have a question about Google Plus as well, which is my impression is that those numbers, followers, might be easier to come by on Google Plus. But does it mean as much
as a person?
Yeah, to get to a particular number. But I'm wondering if having a big following automatically means a big following is going to see what you've got to say.
Well, let me put it this way. On Google Plus, when I post, 6.6 million people can see what I post, right? Whereas
do see?
Well, they have to be awake and they have to be at their computer.
But it will appear in their feed.
Yes. Whereas on Facebook, because of the EdgeRank voodoo, and don't get me wrong, I love Facebook, but it's something like 10% of the people can see it at all, even if they were awake on their computer. And that's because Facebook has decided that they're going to limit the amount of stuff that people see because they don't want them inundated. And they're going to do this by seeing interaction, past interest, whatever it is. And I have a real problem with that because it means that, if I have 100 followers on Facebook, only 10 can see a post. If I have 100 followers on Google Plus, 100 people can see the post.
I think sometimes marketers, in particular, who've put a lot of effort into building up a Facebook following, almost feel like they were a bit tricked.
Well, first of all, who am I to defend Facebook? But Facebook is not a charity, okay? And so really the question is, okay, so, the world has come to an end. You're not going to get that much organic traffic, okay? So now Facebook's business model is if you want your 100 followers to see it, you pay. There's no such thing as a free lunch. So you pay Facebook, you get promoted, and 100 people see it. So the real question is not, oh my God, I've been tricked. The real question is, the way to get a lot of people to see my Facebook post, if I'm a brand, is to pay for the promotion. If you pay for the promotion and you do your math, either it was worth paying or not. And if it was, hallelujah. And if it wasn't, don't pay. It's that simple. It's no different than any other advertising medium. If you advertise on the World Cup and it doesn't pay, you don't advertise again, right? You don't say, oh my God, the World Cup tricked me.
Well, in a moment, in a moment, it'd be great to talk about Canva, which is an Australian-based company, which I'm not sure that everybody realises. So it'd be good to chat about that. First, though, let's just take a quick trip over to the newsroom and to Steve.
All right.
And a question from Steve. And Steve, did you have a chance to Google the 5 Ps for us?
I didn't, unfortunately, Tim. No, I didn't. I'll do that in a second. But just on the continuing on the Facebook theme, we've got a question from Mum Brother's very own Nick Christensen, who asks, what do you make, Guy, of the current controversy over altering Facebook feeds?
So this is the emotional experiment whereby Facebook has published this finding that they to a control group subtly gave a series of more positive updates to one group and a more negative series updates to another group, and saw what it then did to the moods that they posted afterwards. What do you see any ethical issues around that sort of thing? Facebook say it was covered in the privacy policy.
Which privacy policy? But yeah, I'm not the kind of guy who goes crazy about that kind of stuff, because I fundamentally believe that Facebook is not a charity. I think they provide a massive service for people. When I post a picture, it's not like they're saying, okay, here's your hosting charge, right? So I figure that they've organized this party. They let me come into the party for free, and I'm using the party happily. And if they want to derive some kind of information Hallelujah. I don't have a problem with that. And I come at it from a business, and that's their right. And if I don't like what they're doing, I'll leave the party. But to complain that, if you invite someone to your house for dinner, and they come up to your house and they say, I don't like what you're serving. Personally, I would think, well, leave, right? I mean, I invited you to my home for a free dinner, and now you're complaining about what I'm serving? Leave. That would be my logic. So I, I, I guess I'm just not that hostile about that whole thing, because I come at it as a marketer, and at some level, it comes down to numbers. If you have to pay to promote your posts because the organicness has gone away, then it either makes monetary sense or it doesn't. And if it doesn't, call your mother and tell her you have problems. I don't know what that's tough.
Well, let's talk about one of the reasons you're in Australia, which is it's the first time you visited since you joined the team at Canva.
Yes.
I think it's actually quite a well-kept secret to some in the media and marketing community, even here in Australia.
Well, Zach's fault if it's a secret.
Oh, well, Zach is just off camera, who's a member of the marketing team, so I've probably got him in terrible trouble, so I apologise for that. But yeah, tell me why you joined the team.
So, obviously I love social media, and I believe, with Peg's reinforcement, that every single post you make must have some kind of dramatic element, whether it is an embedded video or a photo or a graphic title, something. It can't just be text, and it can't just be the picture that Facebook and Google Plus automatically bring in that's tiny and even tinier on a mobile device. And so basically every post that I make has a picture. And Peg was helping me, and she discovered this thing called Canva. And so she started using Canva. She wouldn't tell anybody what it was because she wanted to keep it a secret, because it was our secret weapon, how we made our stuff better than everybody else's. And then I guess one day the people at Canva noticed that I used it, and they contacted me, right? And they asked me, do I want to learn more or whatever? And one thing led to another, and the next thing you know, I'm chief evangelist of Canva.
So, for instance, on your Facebook page today, you put up an image promoting the fact that we were going to be having this hangout.
Yes, that was done in that red and white one.
Yes,
that was done in Canva.
Right,
yeah.
Okay, yeah.
And so I think that is a much more powerful image than, well, no image.
Than
That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so this is one of those kind of things that I have been very fortunate in my career. I started off working at the Macintosh division, which was a killer app, right? It was a killer computer. And then within Macintosh, the apps that came across my desk that I was affiliated with that sort of changed the world, first of all, were Mac Paint, right? Because it's probably before you were born, but believe it or not, believe it or not, there was a time where you couldn't do graphics on a computer, and so Mac Paint changed all that. And then Mac Write, where you could have multiple fonts, WYSIWYG printing, WYSIWYG display, all the cool stuff. Mac Write changed the world. It's a killer app. And then came PageMaker, so now anybody could make a magazine, a book. You didn't have to have a big old, linotype, hot lead, all this kind of stuff. You needed some
skills, though, to use
it. Yeah, it's still true. Then came along Photoshop, and now you didn't have to have a rapidograph and a ruler and, all this kind of stuff. And so these were some of these killer apps. And then when I saw Canva and what it could do, I said, wow, this is a killer app. So, you better join this thing, because this is going to revolutionize the world. In a sense, Apple democratized computing, and Google democratized information, and eBay democratized commerce, and I think Canva is going to democratize design, where people won't have to buy high-end graphics applications and learn how to use them, because it's not a trivial task, and they can just use Canva. So this all leads to what I call Guy's Golden Touch. So Guy's Golden Touch, first of all, is not whatever I touch turns to gold. God only knows. I wish that was true. Okay, it is not true. Guy's Golden Touch is whatever is gold, Guy touches. And so I decided Canva was gold, so I needed to touch Canva.
And you mentioned this democratization of design.
Yes.
Now, I can imagine there might be people sitting in design agencies who've, gone to design school. They're talented, clever designers.
Yes.
And is there a danger it devalues design?
I don't think so, because if anything, I think it will increase the appreciation for the people who truly have skill. You know, someone with no skill, whether using Photoshop or Canva, is still going to produce crap. Okay, but at least the barriers have been removed. It would be like saying, if you were a writer prior to desktop publishing, that desktop publishing was going to ruin writing because now anybody could print a book. Well, yes, anybody could print a book, and there were lots of crappy books, but there also uncovered people who could have never, ever published before. And also as a tool, you know, Canva is great for the dissemination and use of graphic elements, not necessarily the creation of the graphic element. So if you're a photographer, Canva is not going to replace you. Canva is going to make it better for you because more people will buy your photo. And if you are a logo designer, now your logo can be deployed faster, easier, and more widely. So we're not eliminating Illustrator, right? And so all of this, plus Canva has this amazing ability where you can enable yourself and your client to collaborate. There's two kinds of links that Canva can send out. One is a link that says, click on this and look at what I've designed. Another is click on this and you can edit what I've designed. So there's two levels of collaboration, which is a hell of a lot better than, you know, I've attached a PDF. Oh, you didn't get the PDF? Oh, the PDF was larger than 10 megabytes. It bounced at your server. Let me send it again.
So the client can now make the logo bigger themselves.
Or, I mean, a real use case is designer creates a business card, sends it over with an editable design, then every employee puts in their name and email address, right? I don't think the designer wants to sit there and type, you know, tim@mombella.com and, you know, and steve@mombella.com. And, you know, so I think it's an empowering tool.
Now, you mentioned publishing as well.
Yes.
Now, you've relatively recently just published a book
Yes.
Called Ape, Author, Publisher, Entrepreneur.
Yes.
It feels like this is quite an interesting time for self-publishing. It feels like it's
Yeah,
finally
it's a great
becoming
time.
realistic.
Can you see a trend here? I love to democratize stuff. So I think that publishing is so ripe for democratization. In America, roughly, you know, a few dozen companies in New York control publishing. So the way it worked is you found an agent, or you did the sucking up yourself, and you sucked up, or your agent sucked up to these handful of agencies, publishers in America. And if the editor deemed your manuscript worthy or your proposal worthy, then you were published. And so that was a very artificial system. It was gated by the editor's bandwidth, the editor's taste, the editor's whatever. But now, anybody with Word or other word processors can go to Amazon, upload a file, 8 hours later, they're published. And as a matter of fact, one of the key gating items of self-publishing is cover design. Because believe it or not, cover design is probably the single most important marketing element of your book. And so when you go to Amazon.com, or the Kindle part of Amazon, you see these little thumbnails of your book cover. And that's the context in which your book cover must shine. Okay? So being the self-publishing aficionados that we are, we added to Canva Kindle ebook cover templates. Template is a bad word. Designs.
Yes.
Designs. So now you can go to Canva, and we have about 75 great designs that you can customize, change the text. Obviously, you know, we probably don't have your title put in right, nor your name. You can upload your photos and create this beautiful cover design. And so we're all of this is to democratize publishing so that it's not a few dozen companies controlling what a book can come out. Now, this is not to say that because of self-publishing, every self-published book is good.
Yes.
That is hardly the case. But at least now you have a chance. And so one great path is you are a person who has a book in them. You write this book. You use Canva to create a beautiful cover. You publish it on Amazon. You use social media to tell people about it. It does so well. You make, on at Amazon, in America anyway, I don't know about the Australian deal. In America, if you sell an ebook for $10, you make $7. Okay, that's 70% royalty. That's 5 times higher than what you would get from a publisher. So you make $7 on $10. And in a perfect world, some New York publisher who would have never, ever read your proposal or given you the time of day or answered you notices that, my God, this self-published book is doing so well. Why don't we buy the print rights for this book? And why don't we buy the rights for the next book and the next book? So that is a really viable way to have the best of both worlds. The disadvantage of self-publishing is there is no sugar daddy to give you the advance, right? Because you are the sugar daddy. And so one of the ways to work the system is to self-publish, do well, sell your future book, or sell the rights to your current book to the New York publisher. But you'll only come to the attention of the New York publisher because you're already selling. And that's only possible because of self-publishing. But the beauty of this from the New York publisher's standpoint is now they are buying something that they know will sell because, unlike depending on their editor's luck, it is already selling.
I guess it reduces the risk
tremendously.
Yes. Okay.
Tremendously.
Now time is zipping away from us. Let's see if we can get one more question from Steve very quickly, and then we might have to wrap it up. Steve, just one more question if you can.
Yeah, sure. We've got a question here from Expat Strat on Twitter who asks, content or community, what's the most important?
Wow. I would say that there is definitely an order here. And the order is create or curate great content, and the community will build. That a community will not build simply because you want it to build. You have to give people a great value. And value always on social media comes down to one of, I would say, 3 or 4 things. So value in social media is information. What just happened? What happened at 360? You know, what did I learn at 360? What great insights do I have from 360? So there's information. There's analysis. Analysis means Google I/O happened this week, and Google announced something. What does it mean that they announced this thing? So analysis. There is also assistance. So now you can customize the cover photo of Facebook. How do I do this? Step me through the process of, you know, how do I change my social media cover? How do I make a better avatar? How do I master PR? You know, Zach wrote a post about mastering PR. So there's that assistance thing. And finally, there's entertainment. Entertainment, YouTube video. In America, anyway, a few weeks ago, there was a very funny video where a dog was attacking this little kid, and a cat came out and just kicked the ass, kicked the dog's ass, and, you know, so that went viral. That's entertainment. So I think that, you know, the content it's information, it's analysis, it's assistance, or it's entertainment, and if you do that, you'll build a community.
That's entertainment, and that was very entertaining. But I think we're out of time. So, Steve, thank you very much for running the questions. And Guy, thank you very much indeed for your time.
My
Thanks for
pleasure.
having us.